implementing communist politics that does not work, that leads to famine, that leads to hunger, that leads to disaster. We've seen it in country after country.
The driving rain, Venezuelans started their day in search of food, expecting to see the usual grim queues that form at government stores. Not today. The only stores with affordable food are shut. Closed for the National Workers' Holiday, the sign explains. It says sorry and thank you. People walked away empty-handed but full of dread, wondering where their next meal might come from. I asked Julian Perez what he needs.
All the basics. I have nothing at home. Sometimes I go hungry. Who can say that we, the people, aren't hungry right now?
And here's the thing. These people aren't allowed to come back tomorrow. Food is rationed here, doled out according to the last number on your government ID. Carlos Chirinos explains his turn is today. His number is 5.
Cinco. Hoy me toca a mí.
Cinco.
Hoy y el miércoles.
And miércoles. So he's saying that just today and Wednesday can he buy things, and because it's closed today, he's out of luck. So too is Lady Snanes. With 2 children and one on the way, she is raising her kids with no food in her cupboards and barely any in the fridge. Venezuela is sitting on the world's largest proven oil reserves, but it can't stock the nation's refrigerators. This is all I have, she tells me, as I ask about milk. When I find it, she says, they have milk. And even at 6 months pregnant, sometimes with a child on each hand, she lines up for as many as 18 hours to find anything to eat. Janet de Bolivar shows us all she has too. She says it took her 3 weeks of queuing to stock this much, a shop that would have normally taken about an hour. This is not the worst of it for this family. Janet introduces us to her daughter Yazde, who explains the country is out of medicine too, and there's no line you can wait in for that. Yazde is holding unfilled prescriptions for chemo, and she says no doctor, no hospital can tell her when she'll get treatment.
will strike the continental United States right in the Pacific Northwest. Yes, right there. That's the Cascadia subduction zone. That is the area of focus for FEMA's new major military exercise that they will be conducting. Now, they say it's a threat that the government says it is taking very seriously. Ken Murphy, he is the administrator for Region X, FEMA Region X of the agency. He was asked, is FEMA actually ready for the big one? And he responded that I would never say we are ready. Interesting. I would never say that we are ready. Now, it says here that the agency has spent years preparing the federal response to an earthquake and tsunami in the Pacific Northwest. Now, according to the documentation, FEMA's best case scenario, 10,000 dead. Okay, that's the best case scenario, 10,000 dead. Okay, the article continues, that is assuming that there's no beach tourists that would lead to their worst case scenario, and that is simply too terrifying for them to even contemplate. Okay, so if the best case scenario is 10,000, imagine all the people on the beach hanging out when the tsunami hits. Okay, you're probably talking about 100,000 or more dead. Now, FEMA, directly on the FEMA's website, link below, it says FEMA is imagining a 9.0 magnitude earthquake along the Cascadia subduction zone, and the resulting tsunami is the most complex disaster scenario that emergency management and public safety officials in the Pacific Northwest could ever face. It's called Cascadia Rising. Okay, that's the name of the drill. Cascadia Rising is an exercise to address that very disaster. It's going to take place June 7th through June 10th of 2016, and the emergency operation and coordination centers at all levels of government and the private sector will activate to conduct a simulated field response operation within their own jurisdiction and within neighboring communities, state EOCs, FEMA, and major military commands. Now, CBS goes back and they say that this would be like 5 or 6 Katrinas all at once, up and down from California to Canada, and it would be, this is actually the words of a doctor named Chris Goldfinger. He says this is the closest thing he can think of. He's a paleoseismologist at Oregon State University. CBS continues, it may sound like a Hollywood disaster movie, but it's not. This is the future for the region's 7 million people, says Goldfinger. Now, his research shows much of the region is overdue for a major quake. Now, his research states that the last big one was in 1700, long before there were large cities in harm's way. Quote, if it happens anytime soon, it would just devastate the area. Now, he estimates that there's a 1 in 3 chance that this quake will strike sometime within the next 50 years. A 9.0 megaquake within the next 50 years with the best case scenario of 10,000 dead. Okay? Quote, we're not completely unprepared, but we're pretty darn close, he said. On a scale of 1 to 10, we're probably a little shy of 1 at this point.
Madam Attorney General, the similarities between the mischief of the tobacco industry pretending that the science of tobacco's dangers was unsettled, and the fossil fuel industry pretending that the science of carbon emissions dangers is unsettled, has been remarked on widely, particularly by those who study the climate denial apparatus that the fossil fuel industry has erected. Under President Clinton, the Department of Justice brought and won a civil RICO action against the tobacco industry for its fraud. Under President Obama, the Department of Justice has done nothing so far about the climate denial scheme. A request for action by the Department of Justice has been referred by you to the FBI. My question to you is, other than civil forfeitures and matters attendant to a criminal case, are there other circumstances in which a civil matter under the authority of the Department of Justice has been referred to the FBI?
Senator, thank you for raising that issue, and thank you for your work in this area. I know your commitment is deep. This matter has been discussed. We have received information about it and have referred it to the FBI to consider whether or not it meets the criteria for what we could take action on. I'm not aware of a civil referral at this time. I will look into that and get back to you, but I'm not aware of a civil referral outside of the one that you just raised.
Have you designated the FBI or anyone as the document custodian under the statute at issue? Document custodian being a term of art in the RICO statute.
Senator, I wouldn't be able to provide you that information. And actually, sir, with respect to the FBI's specific steps relating to a referral to them, we would not be able to give you an outline of what had been undertaken at this time.
So whether or not they were authorized to use the Attorney General's authority to file civil investigative demands would not be something you could disclose?
Well, they always have that authority. Whether or not it's something that happened in a particular case,
that's different. I just want to make sure that they had that authority.
But they have that authority as a general matter.
Right.
Whether or not it occurred in a particular matter is something that we wouldn't be able to give the ins and outs of while the matter was under review.
Alberta, Canada has the entire population of one city evacuating. Fort McMurray and its over 80,000 residents are fleeing as the fire moved from the outskirts of town into dense subdivisions by Tuesday, destroying at least 2 entire neighborhoods. The fire is fueled by extreme conditions, very dry forests, high temperatures, as Alberta broke a decades-old record hitting 90 degrees this week, as well as winds up to 30 miles an hour.
It is chaos, really. You hear the emergency sirens going, but I need to show you, it's not just on the border. This is Fort McMurray burning this afternoon, Donna. We're right in the thick of it. This is Highway 63, the main corridor, and we're in downtown. We're not far from a fire station, to be honest, and the hospital. But we also saw up the way, this is Highway 63, the fire seems to be burning across the highway. So people who are trying to go southbound on Highway 63 here to get away from all of this now are likely having to turn around. But Donna, look at that. Like that, even in the past 5 minutes, has just flared up. And to be honest, I'm not sure how long we'll be able to stay here, but it shows how quickly things are changing.
Tuesday morning, the wildfire in Fort McMurray started out at a distance from residential areas, but by the afternoon, it had spread so quickly that a mandatory evacuation order was issued for the whole city. So why did it spread so fast? Thanks to El Nino, Alberta saw a mild winter and an early spring, resulting in dry conditions which created fuel for the fire, and the higher than normal temperatures, low humidity, and 30 kilometers an hour wind gusts didn't help contain the fire. And finally, Fort McMurray is surrounded by a boreal forest.
The boreal forest is a fire-dependent ecosystem, and spruce.
I do not want to be president. I do not want to kill people, so do not elect me as president.
Duterte says he's killed 3 men by his own hands. Rights groups say he's responsible for many more by using death squads to clean up the city. A string of more than 1,000 unsolved assassinations, many teenagers, has raised questions about how Duterte lays down the law.
Who's this victim?
He's 16 years old, alleged drug addict.
Independent investigators have documented how many of those murdered were innocent victims, mistaken for criminals.
Same thing here. Also, mistaken identity, 20-year-old laborer. If he has a penchant for, dismissing judicial process, penchant for doing swift justice, then what does that say of his regard for, for popular decision making, for popular processes or democratic processes?
The mayor has never been charged with any rights abuses, but it appears Davao's successful fight against crime has led to a wave of copycats in other cities. At a safe house, we meet an active cell of assassins.
How many people have you killed? 18 people. And yourself? 20 people. Is this your gun? Can I see it?
Yes.
These armed men say they're hired by police to take out undesirables.
Who are the people you go after?
Criminal.
We go after criminals. We kill them. Drug addicts too.
But do you feel it's right to kill criminals? Shouldn't they be arrested by police and then tried in court?
It's easier if we kill them ourselves than actually go through the process of taking them to court. They go to prison. Eventually they'll get out. At least this way, justice is served.
All these men have regular jobs, but believe it's their civic duty to aggressively clean up their streets.
What do you guys think of Mayor Duterte and his tough stance on crime?
This is what we are coping here. Davao was so dangerous before. It was full of criminals and drug addicts. They were all killed, and now it's peaceful there.
I do not want to be president. I do not want to kill people, so do not elect me as president.
Mercury contamination prompted a frozen food supplier to recall all of its fruit and vegetable products sold at stores including Trader Joe's, Walmart, and Costco. This comes after CRF Frozen Foods voluntarily recalled several of its products last week. Monday's expanded recall now affects about 358 products and 42 brands. Symptoms include a high fever, nausea, abdominal pain, and severe headaches. CRF Frozen Foods has temporarily suspended production at its plant in Washington state. The recall affects stores in all 50 U.S. states and some Canadian.
The FDA is sounding the alarm about a massive recall involving frozen foods. The recall started last month, and since then, it's expanded to include more than 400 products.
And authorities now say they're concerned people won't realize the potentially contaminated products that are already in their freezers. Eyewitness News consumer reporter Susan Campbell joins us now with the details.
There are millions of packages of frozen foods that could be contaminated with listeria. The FDA wants you to look in your freezer to see if you have one of them. More than 400 products, millions of packages of fruits and vegetables from CRF Frozen Foods are included in this recall. The foods were shipped as far back as 2014 to stores all over the U.S., including Costco, Target, and Trader Joe's. Products tied to the CRF plant have caused 8 listeria-linked illnesses, including 2 deaths. The CRF plant closed 2 weeks ago. A company spokesperson said the company is still trying to pinpoint the source of the contamination.